Hi everyone. It's Keith once again. I I am just checking into my sock right now to sleep. Um, but yeah, it's 3:30 something, 3:33. However, I have a small video. Um, it's probably 12 to 13 minutes. Um, and yeah, you could, you know, have some time and listen to it. And it will start shortly.
The land we call Iraq, a civilization was born. About 5000 BC, the land of Sumeria began flourishing. It is here that we have the beginnings of agriculture, writing, temple building. As more has become known about Sumeria, we discover that the Sumerian people were ruled by a race called the Anunnaki. Who were the Anunnaki, and what was really going on in Sumeria?
Well, the Sumerians were one of the first cultures of modern humanity. They arose, some people think maybe as early as around 5500 BC, but their culture really came about in a significant way closer to 3000, 3500 BC. In some ways, they were the founding civilization of Mesopotamia, Mesopotamia being that entire region along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which later included Babylonia, Assyria, some of these other civilizations that are very famous. But the Sumerians seem to be the start of all of that, and that's generally where they're placed in history. Yeah, if we're talking about an ET society, of course there's a very good chance that the ETs have much longer lifespans compared to humans. The way humans have much longer lifespans than many other forms of life here on Earth is just a very strong variance between different life forms as to how long they live.
In old Sumeria, there's the so-called King's List. The King's List is chiseled on a stone. The stone is today in the British Museum in London. And on this King's List, you read that the 10 kings before the Great Flood, they ruled together over 400,000 years. Then on the King List they say, and then the flood came and destroyed everything. And after the destruction, other kings from heaven descended again. They named 23 kings after the Great Flood. And these 23 kings together, they again ruled over roughly 25,000 years. These figures are absolutely impossible. We don't understand it.
Those numbers in the Sumerian texts have actually many layers of information. They may be referring to periods that these ancient priest kings lived for and ruled for. Some of them ruled for like 50,000 years or 60,000 years. Absolutely, I don't have a problem with that. But if you look at those numbers, 144,000 years, and 128,000 years, 432,000 years, you start seeing sacred geometry numbers encoded in those. And that's what we've been missing for a long time. Anunnaki, or the Anunna gods, as they were known in the Sumerian times and from the Sumerian texts and the clay tablets, were beings from another planet that came to Earth in search for gold, apparently. That's what seems to be the main thread of the Anunnaki story. So whatever perception people may have of the Anunnaki or the Anunna gods is a broad perspective, I believe. Different people have different views on it. They clearly played a very important role in the situation we seem to find ourselves in today in this world of ours. They had a very big role to play in cloning activities on this planet, different animals, different species, including our human race, which seems to be one of the projects they undertook here, to clone a new species.
The most authentic of the creation stories that we have specifically say that that's exactly what human beings were bioengineered to do, to be slaves for the ET society. They were designed to get agriculture going, and they were designed then to build structures for the use of the gods. Zecharia Sitchin takes it a step further. He looks into maybe they were intended to do gold mining also. So yes, you can say that if you take those myths seriously, and I use the myth word cautiously because some of these stories that we find in ancient Mesopotamia have been acknowledged by archaeology. For example, the fact that agriculture did start in that very region, that Göbekli Tepe seems to be our first shrine, which started where agriculture started. So we can maybe take some of that seriously, but they said that that's why humans were designed, what they were designed to do was to be the slave race to get those things built and to get all that going.
If humans are the creation of the Anunnaki and were created in their image, what did the Anunnaki look like?
Well, there are some descriptions. They definitely seem to be larger than us. They're much bigger than what we are, possibly 3 times or 4 times bigger, maybe even larger. It seems that some Anunnaki were larger than other Anunnaki. Again, so it's quite fuzzy. You know, some of the elders of the Anunnaki may have been really big ones, and then their offspring may have been slightly smaller because they already possibly had mixed DNA. Who knows? So there's mixed signals that we get from the scriptures and the Anunnaki, the Sumerian texts. But Enki, for example, is described as being much bigger than we are, but also having the hair the color of the sun and eyes the color of the blue sky. So clearly he was an Aryan-like looking dude.
Yeah, when you look at the old Mesopotamian stories and you see how the old temples were used, they were built for the gods. The first temples of Mesopotamia were built as essentially meet and greet places for the gods. They were tall, only a select few could go up, and what historians and archaeologists readily acknowledge was their purpose was for the human elite to go up there and wait for the gods to come down from the sky and meet them on the temple on the top. Some of the ziggurats even had a platform, and there's a theory that one of the uses may have been as a landing pad for some of the craft. So yeah, that structure I think is definitely how all this temple building started. It was just, hey, we need a place to meet the gods. It needs to be safe, and it needs to be high enough where they can come down and people can't attack them. Because when you look at the old Mesopotamian stories, a lot of humans did not like the gods. They felt they were maltreated, and there was a real risk to them of being attacked by unhappy humans. And that might be the whole reason why they're still today apparently taking a back seat and trying to stay disguised, because if they really came out in the open and people figured out maybe what they've been up to, people might get pretty mad at them. That's one theory. When you look at the ancient Egyptian gods, they were so similar to the Mesopotamian gods. You find all of this carryover and duplication. I look at it as sort of a management system, that they just had a management system over Earth. Some were assigned to, lead the Egyptians, some were assigned to lead the Mesopotamians, and then that broke up, and so forth. So it's always been the same gods. The ETs today are the same reptoid little grays. You find the little grays depicted in 3000 BC in Mesopotamia. The reptoid types also depicted already back in 4000, 5000 BC. And even insectoids. It's surprising you find rock art here in this country where you see what looks like the mantis type even being reported over here in connection with imagery that is suggestive of UFOs.
The ancient cuneiform tablets found in Iraq show that the Anunnaki have an eternal obsession with gold. Many other human cultures also share this obsession with gold. The Inca in Peru, the Aztecs in Mexico, and many other people from all over the earth use gold in their statues, rituals, and of course, currency. Did our obsession with gold come from the Anunnaki? Is it possible that the human race is still mining gold for the Anunnaki?
Our obsession with the gold today is just really an extension of that quest for gold by a species that doesn't know why we dig in the gold and turning it into jewelry and some technology, but majority of the gold that we mine in the world is not accounted for. It's not sitting in vaults, it's nowhere to be found. Keep in mind that when the gold, especially in South Africa, I'm not sure how it works in other countries, but in South Africa, when the gold leaves the gold mine, there is no way for anyone to trace it or account for it. That's it, it's gone. We just know that there are hundreds of gold mines in South Africa, and all the gold that they ship out once a week is gone. We don't know where it's gone and what happens to it. Spiritual feelings, probably the best description, that the Anunnaki realized that the senior members of the Anunnaki family, whatever that family may be. Enki, Enlil, and those in that kind of bracket of the Anunnaki realize that they've screwed up. Maybe not intentionally, but they realize that they've created a platform which could be abused by the beings of lower consciousness. And that's exactly what happened. So whatever the situation that they created on this planet, in this world of ours, was abused or was open to abuse by other beings of lower consciousness. And I think that's what happened. Now the Anunnaki realize that their actions have actually backfired on them and is affecting their own survival because of the whole prime directive principle, right? Do not mess with the species and their consciousness, evolution of consciousness. You need to allow them to evolve consciously so that they can grow and reunite with Source, with the source code, and realize that we are one with everything in creation and become gods ourselves again. Anunnaki created the opportunity for other beings to invade and stop that process. So that has affected their level of evolution of consciousness and started possibly an inward spiral of decay and destruction within the Anunnaki breed or species. Because if you breach the prime directive, as Star Trek has showed us for so many decades now, you start and begin the process of your own demise. And I think that's what's happening to the Anunnaki. And they realize if they don't come back here and fix the mistakes or repair and help humanity to stop the decay and the abuse of the human race, they're going to continue decaying and evolving until they'll disappear and they basically get recycled into the great creative process. The Anunnaki are here kicking butt. So I believe the Anunnaki are back and doing everything they can from a position of never being physically visible, because they would just scare the out of people, as you can just imagine. So they're doing it from a realm just outside of our visible perspective, helping us to channel us in the right direction and clearing the space of all the dark entities that have made our life and our world so bloody miserable.
Once the human race as a whole realizes that it is not alone in the universe, we can then take our place amongst the many species and groups that occupy the galaxies. Perhaps we have to begin repairing the damage done to our planet, stop fighting one another, and begin to understand who we really are and what we can accomplish if we desire. Perhaps if we start there, then an extraterrestrial presence will make itself known to all.